about 40 of the top players each year for the draft, for our scouting staff, and I still enjoy that. The one thing I don't miss, I don't have to negotiate with them anymore.
Oh, I bet that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Bo Jackson, should Bo Jackson played football or baseball full time?
Say that again.
I just want to know if you thought Bo Jackson should have gone full time with either baseball or football, just done one sport full time.
Yeah, baseball without a doubt. He had more ability than anyone that I have ever seen in this game, and that's some great players. I mean, if he devoted his whole and just before he got hurt, if you remember, in 91, he was hitting around 300. He was 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, around 100 RBIs. He learned to play baseball in the big leagues, and he had unbelievable. He was 3'6", the first base from the right side.
Wow.
When you put him on a chart, when you put him on a grading chart, the chart that most clubs use today, that's from 20 to 80, he was almost 80 across the board. The power was unbelievable. The speed was unbelievable. The arm was unbelievable. Everything. This guy had more talent, and he was one of the strongest people I've ever seen in the game. He broke the sidebacks machine in Kansas City. That's how strong he was. But our scout did a hell of a job in us getting him because he got to know Bo's mother, who was a maid at the Ramada Inn, from the time he was a freshman in high school. And he would stop and make sure he stopped there every time he was in Bessemer, and he would find out when she had coffee and would take her to coffee. So that's how we got really the inside on Bo, because when he was a senior, she said to Kenny Gonzalez was his name, a great scout, unfortunately passed away, but she said, Kenny, there's no way he's going to sign because she said, out of all her 8 children, he's the only one that promised he would go to college. And sure enough, the Yankees took him in the AAA, and they never got in the house. The scout at the time for the Yankees got fired from Steinbrenner because he didn't get in the house.
Wow.
And Bo goes on, of course, to Auburn, and now it's his junior year. And she said, Kenny, and he still had the association with her, and we had something going that no other club had going. And this is good scouting. He said, she said to him, Bo promised me he would finish his education, Kenny, and if he's offered $1 million, and he's not going to sign. So we didn't draft him, and the Angels did. They offered him $1 million. They had Reggie Jackson talk to him, and he didn't sign.
Wow.
And now it comes to the senior year, and she says, I think Bo really wants to play baseball because Culverhouse had flown Bo to Tampa Bay after being the first-round pick and destroyed his eligibility at Auburn for his last year of baseball. He only played up till March 21st.
Oh, right.
So, anyways, that's why he frowned on any football signing where he would have got much more money. So the weekend before the draft, Richard Woods calls and said Bo would like to come into Kansas City and not work out, just see the park.
Yeah.
Because Kenny had told him so much about it, and he and his agent Richard Wood came in, and unbeknown to me, we're going to introduce him to all the players, and unbeknown to me, we took him down in the clubhouse, and there's George Brett Saberhagen, and Buddy Black all sitting with Auburn T-shirts on. So they did it on their own, and that kind of broke the ice. And then we introduced them to everybody else, and then the 2 owners wanted to, have them in a suite during the game. So we went upstairs. Kenny and I took them upstairs, and we had a little dinner in the suite, and we were watching infield, and Lonnie Smith's in left field, and Bo says, geez, he can't throw. Willie Wilson's in center, and he said, he can't throw. And Motley's in right. He had a little better arm, and he couldn't throw. That was the outfield we won a world championship with in '85.
Right.
Bo said, he says, I know I can throw better than any of them. And I said, well, we know that too, Bo. And I said, I got one question from you, Bo, that bothers me, though. You said you didn't want to ride buses in the minor leagues. And I said, no, you can't start in the big leagues. He said, I never said that. What I did say, he said, was I didn't want to ride buses in the minor leagues for a number of years. So, anyways, he met with the owners, and we took him back to the hotel. And this was on a Saturday before the draft, and we talked a little more, and that was it. They left. There are no guarantees the Royals were going to get them. Now it's the Monday, the day of the draft. John Sherholtz, our general manager, gets a call from Richard Woods, and he said, if Bo plays baseball, he wants to play for the Kansas City Royals. And John looks at me, and he says, I don't know if we're being used. And he said, you made the decision. So I thought to myself, the Angels had 5 first-round picks that year, and they drafted him there before. And I thought, surely if he told anybody else, especially the Angels, the same thing we knew, they'd take him. So the first round went by, and no Bo Jackson's taken. The second round goes by, the third round goes by. We take Harvey Pulliam, who ended up in the big leagues with us for a while. So it's after 3 rounds, and I said to our scouts that we had in there, I said, you know what? I said, if we don't sign him, the franchise won't fold on a 4th round pick. So to this day, I can't tell you why I decided on the 4th round. Other than that, it was always my lucky number, and that's what I wore when I played as a young man. But anyways, so I announced the Kansas City Royals select Edward Vincent Jackson, better known as Bo. And this was on conference call. You couldn't hear a pin drop in New York. So that was the story, and the climax of the story. We drafted him, of course, in the June draft. He signed June 21st, which was, let's see, March, April, May, 3 months after his last game, and we had this big press conference at Kauffman Stadium, and it was so big they had to move it from the regular press room because there were papers from all over the United States and outside of the United States. We had this big press conference, and for me, it was the greatest day in scouting, gentlemen, that I can ever remember, because I told John Sherholtz, I said, the guy that should be in here is Kenny Gonzalez. He says, where's he at? I said, Jackson, Mississippi. Get him in. So we got him in, and I'll never forget, we walk into this big banquet room with all the writers waiting, and there was a reception line. Mr. Kaufman, the owner, and the co-owner at the time, Mr. Fogelman and his wife, were greeting everybody, and then Bo and his mom. And she was a big, big, buxom woman. And sure. As we walked in, she rushes out of the line right in front of the owners, and Kenny's about 6'1", about 190 pounds, and gives him a big kiss and lifts him right off the floor and says, thank you, Kenny. And Mr. Kaufman says to Mr. Fogelman, he says, I guess that's what it's all about. Those men down in the looking for the kids. He said, that's what it is. So to me, that was for scouting, for the owners to recognize what the scouts do and what they can accomplish. So thanks to Kenny Gonzalez, the Kansas City Royals got Bo Jackson.